In session 2, we ended while I was talking about believing in Jesus for salvation. Now I'm going to continue by talking about Jesus' teaching when he washed his disciples' feet. Herman, are you still messing around with the camera settings? So, we're also going to stay in the book of John. John is a book, it's one of the one of the four Gospels. The first three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, pretty much talked about historical things and included miracles, of course, and so on and so forth. The book of John tends to look at historical things also, but tends to look at the miraculous, look at the spiritual, and has great teachings in it. And so what we're going to look at is in John 13. It's the Last Supper. Some people call it the Last Supper, communion, whatever you like to name it is fine. The book of John is covering that here. The disciple is talking about what happened. And you'll see a big difference between what goes on, or what is reported, I should say, in John and what's reported in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it's communion as we know it, the cup and the bread. And in John, cup and the bread aren't even mentioned. He talks about a foot washing episode that Jesus did, and then there's a lot of teaching that follows that. Now, the foot washing episode was something that took place during the meal. Jesus got up and he started washing the disciples' feet. He took a basin, took a cloth, and started cleaning their feet. And some churches do that as a ceremony. It wasn't really intended to be a ceremony. Other people look at that and they say, well, Jesus was trying to show what a humble person he was, and he wants the disciples to be humble people and to watch out for each other. Now, listen, that's a great lesson, and that can be taken from this if you want to. I don't have any problem with that, but I'm telling you, it's way deeper than that. All right, so let's read it and let's look at it. This is John chapter 13, and I'm going to start with verse 4. Jesus rose from supper and laid aside his garments, and taking a towel, girded himself about. Then he poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wash them with the towel with which he was girded. And so he came to Simon Peter. He said to Simon Peter, by the way, is talking now. He said to Jesus, Lord, do you wash my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, what I do you do not realize now, but you shall understand hereafter. Peter said to him, never shall you wash my feet. Jesus answered and said to him, if I do not wash you, you have no part in me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, then not my feet only, but also my head and my hands. Jesus said to him, he who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew the one who was betraying him. For this reason he said, not all of you are clean. So when he had washed their feet and taken his garments and reclined at table again, he said to them, do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, the Lord and the teacher, washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I gave you an example that you should do as I did to you. Okay, so let's look at this. This is taking place on the night when Jesus was betrayed, and he's going to his death. He's going to go to a fake trial, and he's going to his death. He has his last opportunities to talk to his disciples, and what does he say? Guys, I think I'll wash your feet. Your feet are looking really bad. You believe that's what he was caring about? I don't. So let's look at it. First of all, Jesus said in verse 7, what I do you do not realize now, but you shall understand later. Now, how hard is this? Jesus took a basin. He put water in it. He took a towel. He went around. He used the wet towel on their feet and dried them off so they would be clean. If somebody did that to me, if my wife did that to me, let's fantasize. If my wife did that to me, I would know that she washed my feet. And then if she would say to me, you don't know what I did, I would have to say, of course I know what you did. You washed my feet. And it's the same here. Except Jesus wasn't doing this to wash their feet. He was doing this to live out a parable. So the parable is what we want to try to decipher to see what he was saying. Peter said to him, never yet shall you wash my feet. Jesus answered him, if I do not wash you, you have no part with me. Okay, now listen. If he's just washing his feet, how rough and tough is that? That Jesus would say, if you don't let me wash your feet, you have no part with me. I mean, it's just, it's too much. It's too strong of a reaction. So it's not just a foot washing here. And then Jesus went on to say, he who has bathed, I should back up a little. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet, but also my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, he who has bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean, and you are clean, but not all of you. And he said, not all of you are clean, because he knew the one who was betraying him, who was Judas. Okay, Judas wasn't really on God's side, wasn't really on Jesus' side. He was out to betray him for money. All right? And so he was unclean in a different way. It wasn't that he didn't take a bath. It wasn't saying, you know what, that Judas, he doesn't bathe enough, he stinks, and so he's not clean. Neither was he saying to Peter, you've bathed, and so you don't have to worry about your head and your hands or the rest of your body. You're completely clean because you took a bath. I don't believe it. I don't believe that Jesus was keeping track of when the disciples were going to take a bath and not take a bath. He was talking about something else. So let's look at it. Now, if it's a parable, we have to remember that Jesus used items to talk about things that related to something else. For example, he talked about in a parable about some wheat and some tares. And the wheat stood for real believers. Tares stood for people who were fake believers. And so things can mean something else in parables. That's the whole point. So let's find out what those things are. First of all, I guess I'm going to erase this. Let's look at this word clean that we've been talking about. All right, clean has, of course, to do with washing or being washed. And so let's look at what Jesus might have been referring to. And a good place to see what he might have been referring to would be in the Old Testament. Remember, they didn't even have the New Testament yet because these disciples were going to write the New Testament. But they knew the Old Testament and what was in the Old Testament, so we might be able to find some things there that would give us a clue. So I'm going to read out of Jeremiah. This is Jeremiah chapter 4. And, of course, now I can't find it. It's Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 14. I'm reading this, by the way, out of the New American Standard Bible, which is the Bible that Paul used when he came to the United States and Canada and Mexico and Chile and so on and so forth. Okay, Herman. Take it easy, Herman. I understand. I'm kidding. They all know that Peter didn't come to that Paul didn't come to the Americas. Okay? Well, neither did Peter for that matter. And so this is just a translation that's called the New American Standard. We all know that Paul spent most of his time in Jamaica. That was a joke too, Herman. All right. Let me read this. It says, wash your heart from evil, O Jerusalem, that you may be saved. Now, the washing here is not talking about them literally going into their heart or into their body, cutting them out. Pull the heart out, wash it, put it back in so that the evil might be released out of them. It's talking about being washed of their sins. It's talking about cleaning in regards to forgiveness. All right? Cleaning in regards to forgiveness. There is a psalm where King David said to the Lord, wash me and I shall be white as snow. This came after his problems with Bathsheba, where he committed adultery with her and then killed her husband, Mr. Bathsheba. All right. Otherwise known as Uriah the Hittite. And he's saying to God, I committed sin. If you wash me, I shall be white as snow. Does that possibly mean that if God washed him, he would be snow white all over his body? If he did, that sure would scare the kids half to death around him. Somebody that white walking around. He's not talking about that. He's talking about forgiveness. God, if you will wash me, you will forgive me, I will be clean. I will be white as snow. And so, in this parable, when Jesus is talking about cleaning, he's talking about forgiveness. He's saying to them, I need to forgive you. And he's washing their feet. Why their feet? All right, let's look at that. Herman, you tripped on the light cables. Well, folks, this would be a good time to take a break if you need to, because it will be easy to find the place you left off. I'm going to continue when Herman gets the lights back on, since this is not a good time to break the subject matter. Okay, now we want to talk about feet. Jesus insisted upon washing their feet. Why the feet and not the hands and the head? What do we do with our feet? No, Herman, I'm not talking about smelling them. If you want to smell your feet, okay. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about walking with them. We go places with them. In the Bible, it's often paths, because they didn't have super highways. Okay, we walk with our feet. So we're going to go to the Old Testament, just like we did with cleaning and found out that that had to do with forgiveness. Let's find out what Jesus was talking about with feet. This is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 33. You shall walk in all the way which the Lord God has commanded you, that you may live and that it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which you possess. Okay, was God talking about a certain way, meaning he wanted them to start here and then take a left and then take a right and then take another right, and then he would bless them? I don't think so. I'm just going to get rid of that foolishness right there. What he was talking about was, if you will act right, if your walk in life will be good, then I will bless you. Let's look at others. Make sure that's not the only one. I'm just going to read through some of these that I have written down. Genesis 17:1 says, walk before me and be blameless. Do you suppose that God said, okay, you walk here and be blameless and everything will be okay? No. He's not talking about that kind of thing. He is talking about their conduct in life. I'm going to put the word conduct up here. Their walk in life is their conduct in life. He wants a certain conduct in life. Deuteronomy 10:12, walk in all his ways. Again, that there aren't certain streets, paths, whatever that he has for us to walk. When he says walk in my ways, he's talking about the way we conduct ourselves in life. That's what walking is about. There are a whole bunch that I could give you. Maybe I'll list them at the end of this or something. I'll just pick another one. 1 Kings 9:4, walk before me in integrity of heart. How do you literally walk with your integrity of heart? That has to do with your conduct in life. Okay, so Jesus is talking about conduct in life. When he talks about washing their feet, remember that was forgiveness. Forgiveness of their conduct or their walk in life. That's what he's talking about. When he washed their feet, it was symbolism of the fact that he needed to forgive their conduct in life. All right. I'm going to list some of the things that are involved in this parable. I've got it down here so I don't forget any of them. Okay, wash, we've discussed already, is forgiveness. Okay. Bathe. We didn't talk so much about bathe, I guess. Bathe has to do with taking a bath. Jesus said, "You've bathed. You're completely clean." Okay. So what do you suppose completely clean is? If you wash, you have forgiveness. If you bathe, you are completely clean. You have complete forgiveness. Ran out of room. Right? You have complete forgiveness. That's what Jesus was talking about back in John 13. He said, "He who has bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean." Okay, so the bathing has to do with all your sins are forgiven. Walk, we talked about. Walk is conduct. Conduct in life. When we didn't talk about, Jesus said, "You have no part with me." Part in Greek is kind of the same thing. You have a measure of something with them. Okay? And then with, the last one. Jesus said, "You have no part with me if you don't let me wash your feet." With in the Greek is companionship or fellowship. That's not a very good E. Fellowship. Okay? So with is fellowship. Now, if we read this parable and make these substitutions over here for what was written here, we'll get an idea of what Jesus was trying to teach. Okay? I'm going to read that. I'll probably put this up on over where I'm standing too, so you can see and read along with me. Jesus began to symbolically show his disciples a lesson about forgiveness. So he came to Simon Peter. Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to forgive my errant walk in life?" Jesus answered and said to him, "What I do you do not realize now, but you will understand hereafter." Peter said to him, "Never shall you lower yourself to forgive my errant walk in life." Jesus answered him, "If I do not forgive your errant walk in life, you have no assigned part of companionship or fellowship with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, then forgive not only my errant walk in life, but my whole sinful nature as well." Jesus said to him, "A person who has had his whole sinful nature forgiven needs only to have his errant walk in life forgiven. His whole sinful nature is forgiven, past, present, and future, and you are completely forgiven, but not all of you." For he knew the one who was betraying him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are completely forgiven." So when he had forgiven their errant walk in life, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, the Lord and teacher, forgave your errant walk in life, you also ought to forgive each other's errant walk in life, especially when others have sinned against you. For I gave you an example that you should do as I did to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a slave is not greater than his master, nor is one who is sent greater than the one who sent him. You know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Okay, so what does that mean to me? That means when I got saved, I got bathed by Jesus. He washed my entire being. He washed me completely for past sins, present sins, future sins. I don't have to go back to him for that kind of forgiveness. I have been forgiven. I'm a new creation. A new creation. I said I was going to say creature and creation came out creation, whatever. Anyway, he said that I'm a new creation. We will talk about that in a succeeding session. But for right now, understand that I'm completely clean because I got saved. What I need are my feet washed. I need my walk in life forgiven and controlled and helped by him. All right? So it's that. It's when I go to Jesus and say, look, I've had a problem with this sort of sin. Can you help me? And he helps me. That's communication. That's learning to deal with the problems that you have and let God deal with that. But he's not dealing with saving you again. He's dealing with your walk in life. And then when people sin against you, God expects, he's not asking, he's expecting you to forgive the persons who have walked against you, bumped into you sort of in life and caused you a problem. That you need to forgive them. You need to wash their feet, their dirty feet. Okay, I'm going to put that up at the end of this session so you can read it for yourself. Actually, what I'm talking about here are some of the Bible verses that relate to the substitutions that I've made like this. Okay, so you can see that for yourself and look it up and be convinced that that's what this is. It's a parable about how Christianity works. This is how Christianity functions. This is the deal that is between you and God. This is the fellowship. These are the rules to the fellowship that God has made for us. See you in the next session. Okay, Herman, turn me off. Oh, you got to be kidding, Herman. You still haven't figured out how to do this? Oh, man. This button right here.
By the way, the disciples eventually understood the lesson and included the same symbols in their teaching. I'll give you a few references from their writings, which of course is the New Testament. You could use a concordance to find others.